President Trump outside the White House this month. Tom Brenner, The New York Times, Washington. President Trump appeared on Sunday to abandon a strategy of deferring to the special counsel examining Russia's interference in the 2016 presidential election, lashing out at what he characterized as a partisan investigation and raising questions about whether he might seek to shut it down. Trump has long suggested that allegations that he or his campaign conspired with Russia to influence the election were a hoax and part of a witch hunt, but until this weekend he had largely heeded the advice of lawyers who counseled him not to directly attack Robert S. Mueller III, the special counsel, for fear of aggravating prosecutors. Now's Mr. Mueller extends his inquiry with a subpoena to the Trump Organization, evidently in search of business ties with Russia. The president appears to be losing his patience. While his lawyers had reassured him that the investigation would wrap up by Thanksgiving, then Christmas, then early in the new year, it seems increasingly clear that Mr. Mueller is not about to conclude his inquiry anytime soon. Why does the Mueller team have 13 hardened Democrats, some big crooked Hillary supporters, and 0 Republicans? Mr. Trump wrote on Twitter on Sunday morning. Another Dem recently added, "Does anyone think this is fair? And yet, there is no collusion." The attack on Mr. Mueller, a longtime Republican who was appointed FBI director under a Republican president, George W. Bush, followed a statement by Mr. Trump's personal lawyer published Saturday calling on the Justice Department to end the special counsel investigation. Mr. Trump followed up that evening with a tweet, arguing that the Mueller probe should never have been started, in that there was no collusion and there was no crime. The two weekend tweets were the first time Mr. Trump has personally used Mr. Mueller's name on Twitter, and it raised the question once again about whether the president might be seeking to lay the groundwork to try to fire the special counsel. Such a move would surely set off a bipartisan storm of protest, and some Republicans expressed alarm on Sunday. If he tried to do that, that would be the beginning of the end of his presidency, because we're a rule of law nation. Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina, who has been an ally of the president, said on State of the Union on CNN. When it comes to Mr. Mueller, he is following the evidence where it takes him, and I think it's very important he be allowed to do his job without interference, and there are many Republicans who share my view. Among them was Senator Jeff Flake of Arizona, a sharp critic of Mr. Trump who appeared on the same program. "People see that as a massive red line that can't be crossed," he said. He added that he hoped Mr. Trump's advisors prevailed on him not to fire Mr. Mueller. "We have confidence in Mueller," Representative Trey Gowdy, Republican of South Carolina, said if the president was innocent, he should act like it and leave Mr. Mueller alone. Mr. Gowdy warned of dire repercussions if the president tried to fire the special counsel, which might require him to first fire his attorney general or deputy attorney general. "The president's going to have a really difficult time nominating and having approved another attorney general," Mr. Gowdy said on Fox News Sunday. "I would just counsel the president. It's going to be a very, very long, bad 2018, and it's going to be distracting from other things that he wants to do and he was elected to do. Let it play out its course. If you've done nothing wrong, you should want the investigation to be as fulsome and thorough as possible." The House Speaker, Paul D. Ryan, Republican of Wisconsin, issued a statement warning Mr. Trump to back off. "As the Speaker has always said, Mr. Mueller and his team should be able to do their job," said Ashley Strong, a spokeswoman for Mr. His counterpart, Senator Mitch McConnell of Kentucky, had no immediate comment, according to his office. The shift in Mr. Trump's approach comes just days after the New York Times reported that Mr. Mueller has subpoenaed records from the Trump Organization. Trump's lawyers met with Mr. Mueller's team last week and received more details about how the special counsel is approaching the investigation, including the scope of his interest in the Trump Organization specifically. A president cannot directly fire a special counsel but instead can order his attorney general to do so, and even then has to give a cause-like conflict of interest. Since Attorney General Jeff Sessions, a former campaign advisor, has recused himself from the Russia investigation, to Mr. Trump's continuing aggravation, the job would then fall to the Deputy Attorney General, Rod J. Rosenstein. But Mr. Rosenstein has said as recently as last week that he sees no justification for firing Mr. Mueller, meaning that he would either have to change his mind or be removed himself. The third-ranking official at the Justice Department, Rachel Brand, decided last month to step down. The next official in line would be the Solicitor General, Noel Francisco, a former White House and Justice Department lawyer under Mr. Trump sought to have Mr. Mueller fired last June but backed down after his White House counsel, Donald F. McGahn, threatened to quit. The president told The Times a month later that Mr. Mueller would be crossing a red line if he looked into his family's finances beyond any relationship with Russia. The White House made no